Boim B'Shem Hashem B'Shem Irgin Shir Torah. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's shir from Harav Yaakov Smith on Emasai Mut Alecha B'li Bracha, situations when a bracha can't be said. To have the great schus sponsoring a shir, call Irgin Shir Torah at 718-851-8651 or email ist@yeshivanet.com. Harav Smith.
We had a shayla recently. Someone who woke up middle of the night. He wanted to drink something, and it's very difficult for him to wash negel vasa. So he was told that he doesn't have to wash negel vasa because once he washes, he's not going to fall asleep again. But he can't make a bracha because his hands are not clean. So he heard that you could be yaitze by relying on hearer, thinking the bracha, and then he could drink. And that was a chiddush to me. But I want to look into it. And then we heard another shayla, I guess is much more challenging, where someone is a choila and he's not clean, he's not halachically clean. And what does he do about brachas? We had a shayla, a visitor that's with the choila in the room, so he can't make a bracha. And we'll soon see, besides the fact that it touches upon the major yisaidis in Hilchas Brachas, but it's also various type of questions regarding situations when a bracha can't be said. So what's the procedure? So the truth is, to us, it's unthinkable to eat without a bracha. Besides that, you mavatal the mitzvah, the rabbanon of making a bracha. We all remember the Gemara in Brachas Lamed Hey, that it's an issa to have hana b'lay l'mazeh b'lay bracha, and the Gemara, quote unquote, throws the book at you. Kilu ma'al, kilu goyz like Kadosh Baruch Hu v'knesses Yisrael. You're a gazlin, as a moyel, and also worst of all, he becomes a partner, a chavel ish mashchis li'Rav ben Avot. So you're talking about meila, gzeila, Yirav ben Avot. But he had an interesting taina, and he said, I'm an oinus. The person felt he was an oinus, and oinus achmana patre. Now, once you're saying oinus, you might as well be a little more aggressive. Don't forget, the makar, the source of oinus achmana patre, is talking about the most serious taveris. A person that's compelled to do something is not held accountable. So that's our starting point. Can we apply the concept of oinus when a person in a situation that he can't make a bracha? And the truth is, I was surprised. I thought I would find much more mafurish about this sugya. So I felt that as a vote of confidence. That's me and you, our wonderful partners, to learn the sugya and to try to find a source, one way or the other. Is there a ptur? Is there a heta to eat without a bracha in a situation of oinus? So let's start to think. And we'll do this together. We have wonderful partners. Do we know any situation that a person lechatchila is allowed to eat without a bracha? So it comes to mind, yes. An oinen, Rachmana litzlan, an oinen before the kfura is allowed to eat without a bracha. So the question is, can that apply to our case as well? But one second. What's the reasoning, what's the logic behind an oinen being allowed to eat without a bracha? We do know that an oinen is part of kol mitzvahs, but he can't do isurim, he can't eat tarfis. So even though he's not mechuyev in making a bracha, but how can he eat without a bracha? What about the issa, gzeila, meila, Yirav ben Avot? Obviously, there's some type of patur of oinis, and there's no issa. But it's not really a raya. Because here we come to one beautiful yisoid that really, as I saw the Mincha Shloim, Chelik Aleph, Simon Yedches, Ois Tes, the Gesher Achayim, and I saw the Emek Bracha very briefly in Birchas Nen and Ois Beis, all say the same yisoid. That there is no issa of eating without a bracha. It's no such issa. If you're mechuyev to make a bracha, and a person doesn't make a bracha, then he's oiv on the issa. It's like eating before davening. If you're mechuyev to daven, then you can't eat before davening. But an oinen, that since he's not mechuyev to make a bracha, there's no chiyuv bracha, there's no issa to eat. In other words, the issa of gezela is a product of the chiyuv bracha. So once an oinen is parted from brachas, there's no issa. Varaya, after the aninas, he doesn't have to make up the davening he missed. What about tashlumin? Teretz is tashlumin is shaykh when he's a chiyuv, but he didn't do it. He's an oinus. An oinen is pata. In fact, I saw the Shmir HaShabbos in Samach Dalet Pei, Sivkot and Pei, in the Hagoyis, quote of Shlomo Zalman, who says that he believes that an oinen could even smell besamim. Although the Gesher Achayim, one of the authorities in the Chazavelis, writes he shouldn't smell besamim. Better enough he has to eat without a bracha. You have to smell besamim, or smell techos. Look at Shlomo Zalman, what's wrong? If he's an oinen, he's patur from brachas. In fact, we'll soon see the Paiskim say an oinen is not mechuyev to find someone to make a bracha and be moitzi him. Again, he's patur. But we can't compare that to a case of an oinen. An oinis where he is chayiv, but he's an oinis. So let's think again. Where do we find something, a situation where a person eats without a bracha? So I'll tell you. And that's the famous Safek brachas lahakol, which is in 6 places in Shulchan Aruch. I'd to hear it in Kuf Samach Zayin Tes regarding birchas Safek birchas hamoitzi, Kuf Ayin Dal regarding Yayin b'Soich Suda, Reish Tes Siv Gimel Shulchan Aruch says clearly Safek brachas lahakol. The end of Reish Yud regarding Te'ima, and in Reish Yud Ches and Reish Yud Tes regarding Asal Linis Nes B'Makam Hazeh and Goimel. 6 places Shulchan Aruch says Safek brachas lahakol. That means someone's at work and Pashat, he forgot if he made a bracha. He wants to drink a coffee. Drink without a bracha. Where does it come from? So there are 2 Makairis in Shas. Sukkah Mem Zayin, the famous Gemara, Gabi sitting in the Sukkah Shmini Atzeres, V'Hilchasa, Meisav Yasvinan, and Bruchilay Mevarchinan. Frek the Rambam in Per Adar, in Siman Chavav, make up your mind. If you're convinced he's mechuyev to sit in the Sukkah, what happened to the bracha? So the Rambam, Lagabe is sitting in the Sukkah, Sveika Deraisa L'chumra, you got to make a bracha. Lagabe bracha is Safek brachas lahakol. So we have 1 Gemara. Second Gemara is the brachas Chaf Aleph. If you recall, the Gemara says you have a Safek Krishma, repeat the Krishma, but you don't repeat the Berchas Krishma. Because regard is Akta Rosh in Peri Gimel and Brachas Ois Tezvav, regarding Krishma Safek Deraisa, regarding brachas Safek brachas lahakol. So we have a pretty good case. 2 Gemaras, 6 places in Shulchan Aruch, Sabal Safek brachas lahakol. The Mishnah in Kuf Samach Zayin Mem Tes and Reish Tezvav Sifka and Chaf says not that you don't have to, don't bother, but if you want to, is a ma'ila. It's also to make a bracha misafek. So now the question is, can we apply that to our case? A person, just like you're allowed to eat without a bracha, maybe a person that's in an oinus, in the middle of the night, he can't make a bracha, maybe he's allowed to eat without a bracha. And here we come to one of the biggest yisodos in Hilchas Brachas. And that is, Sabah, like we call it, is not as pashut as we would like it to be. The whole premise of Sabal, of Safek brachas lahakol, is not even so pashut. And let me explain. In Brachas Yud Beis, we find a very yisodistic machlokes in the Gemara. When you started making a bracha thinking it's wine, and it was really sheicher, and you changed the whole suffix, if you go bust to the beginning of the bracha, the end of the bracha. So Tais says, the Gemara doesn't tell us what to do. What do we do with the Safek brachas? Tais, what do you mean, what do you do? Safek brachas lahakol, assume you are yaitza, and don't make a bracha. But Tais v'rihaya oima l'chumra, the tzarech levarech pamacheres. The Ri obviously held that it's not just a Safek brachas, it's a Safek gezeila, meila, and being a partner to your Ravam. You can't take that lightly. So there's a machlokes in Baliyat Tosfos. Safek brachas lahakol, what does that mean? Pashto we learn lahakol means don't make a bracha. But the Ri says, what do you mean? You can't eat without a bracha. And what do? Lahakol means you're allowed to make a bracha. Because don't forget, making a bracha when you might not be mechuyev to, you're risking the awesome aveira of Shem Shemayim Levatala. So everybody's moed the Safek brachas lahakol. The question is, which way? And this is basically the way the Sharatzian in Reish Tezvav Sivkot and Chavalef explains. Because here we're in a no-win situation. Safek brachas to make a bracha. If chashom you don't need it, and Mishnah he doesn't need it, it means no words. The lav of Shem Shemayim Levatala Chama Mishar Lavim. He quotes the Gemara in Shavuos. It's like Chayv Krisis Umises Bezdin. So therefore, how do you take a chance making a bracha? And that's why the way we understand it, so what does lahakal means? Eat without a bracha. But you have a one of the Baliyat Tosfos, that you have to make a bracha. The issa of me'ilah, of gzeila, is worse. But there's another Gemara, and that's the sugya in Pesachim Kuv Beis. There's machlekes regarding shini makam. I'm not getting into it on Negeya. So the Rashbam says, let's flex our muscles. Let's show koyach the atera. Now, what does it mean, koyach atera? If you have a suffix bracha, what's koyach the atera? I would ask you, what does that mean? So like the Marshal, the big chiddush would be to say you're allowed to make a bracha. That's koyach the atera. But what do? We're not such kunzmachas. When you have a suffix bracha, what do? Don't make a bracha. Zok the Marshal, he quotes the Marshal, all in Pesachim, and Zok the Marshal, what do you mean? The koyach that Torah is to tell a yid you're allowed to eat without a bracha is the biggest kula. Zok Rabbi Kiva Eiga in Masech the Brachas Daf Yibeit on the side of the page. Apparently the Marshal holds la Maisa that when you have a suffix brachas lahakal, what does it mean? You allow him to make a bracha, but don't play around with eating without a bracha. So the Marsha, and that's the way Kiva Eiga understood the Marsha, that by Birchas Hanenem, the bigger avla is to eat without a bracha. So the hakul means when you come to work and you're not sure if you made a shakal on the coffee, make the bracha, but don't you dare take a chance of eating b'lei bracha. And the Kiva Eiga points to another Gedali Apoisim, the Evan Oiz and Simon Reish Yudalid, regarding a Shiloh when he skipped the word ha'olam, melech, and he skipped the word ha'olam. So it's a suffix brachas. So the Evan Oiz printed in the back of the Shulchan Aruch says, suffix brachas lahakal, and you better make another bracha. We're makel, we allow him to make a bracha misafik. And Kiva Eiga points to another Tosfos and brachas. So now we see all agree sabal, suffix brachas lahakal. But in which way, in which direction are we led? Pashtis, don't make a bracha. But we have Tosfos in two places that you're mechuyev to. Now, let me ask you a simple question. It seems to be astonishing, because Tosfos, as great as he was, doesn't have the license to argue on a Gemara. But it's two Gemaras. The Gemara in Sukkah regarding Shmini Atzeres, the Gemara in Brachas regarding Safik, Birchais, Krishma, both say that you don't make a bracha. So how does Tosfos, the Ri, argue on two Gemaras? The kasha is not a kasha at all. Because when Tosfos hold you have to make a bracha, it's because of the issa of eating b'loi bracha. The two Gemaras are not regarding Birchas HaMitzvahs, sitting in the sukkah without a bracha, and Birchas Krishma not saying. They're both Birchas HaMitzvahs. That we have no problem with. There's no issa me'ilah if you do a mitzvah b'loi bracha. So now we have a very firmly established machlokes Rishonim, what to do by Safik Brachas. Rav Vozna, in the Chuvas, in Chelik Tesim, in Kuf Yotes, he says, I found another Rishon that you better make a bracha. And that's the famous Shaila about the second kais. Let's rewind a few months. Pesach by night. The first kais, we make a bracha, it's Kiddush. Second kais is the machlokes what to do. We make a bracha, Sardim don't. The Maril and the Menhagim, Amid Kuf Zayin, he quotes a Ra'ah that since Asa Lehenes B'lai Bracha, Safik Issa L'chumra, and you better make a bracha. Now, he's explaining the meaning of Ashkenazim to make a bracha because you can't risk eating B'lai Bracha. So here we have a real machlokes what to do by Safik Brachas. But let's not be flustered. Halach l'maisa, we are Shulchan Aruch Eden, and in actually 6 places, but I have to be honest, the last 2 places we're talking about Berchas Haidah, Shasa Nisim, Asa Lines Makam Hazeh, and Goimel, so that's not really a raya. But the first 4 places that I mentioned, 4 places regarding eating b'lei bracha, and the Shulchan Aruch is very clear. Safik brachas lahakal means you eat and don't make a bracha. So although it's not as simple as we would like it to be, but lamaisa we paskin safik brachas lahakal and don't make a bracha. Rav Wosner in Chelik Aleph Reishei, but I think more importantly in Chelik Zayin Siman Chav Tes, he explains, even though we saw Rishonim hold, you can't take a chance to eat with bracha, but he says very simply that the whole Chiyah bracha and the whole Issa b'loi bracha is at most the Rabbanon. So he suggests that Heim Amru v'Heim Amru. Chazal that required the bracha and created an Issa of Achila b'loi bracha, they said that's only when you have Vadei Chiyav. If it's a suffix, approach cautiously and don't make a bracha. And I think we could even add more than that, because let's assume there's an Issa b'loi bracha. What's the extent of the Issa b'loi bracha? An Issa d'Rabbanan. What's the general cloud with a Sveika d'Rabbanan? L'hakil. So Rabbi said, I think we should put it very clearly. All agree of the chayma of the Issa of eating b'loi bracha. That's a Gemara. But all agree to the chayma of making a bracha that's unnecessary. So, to put it bluntly, it's the question of what's the lesser of two evils? Eat b'loi bracha, make a bracha that's bracha l'vatala. So that explains sabau. But now the question is, does that apply to your case, waking up in the middle of the night? You're not torn by eating without a bracha, or, it's simple. So maybe taka, you have to make a bracha, even though it's difficult. Do we find yet an oinus situation? Not yet. But if you're a Shasi, you probably remember this. And that's the Gemara in the Mishnah, and the Gemara in Brachas, Daf Chafam at Beis, a Balkari. In those days, the Balkari was also to make brachas. He eats without a bracha, mahara, but he has to bench. Now, what kind of compromises? You eat without a bracha and you bench. So Rashi explains, benching the Raisa you can't overlook. But brachas is the Rabbanan. That already is a real einus, because he can't make a bracha. So what do we tell him? We don't tell him starve or fast. We tell him einus, rachamana patra, and eat without a bracha. And Rav Wosner in Chelik Vav Siman Chav Gimel, and essentially I didn't find it before Rav Wosner, maybe I couldn't find it, but this is what he says. From the case of Balkari, we have a raya to our question of an einus. Because a Balkari is not a suffix brachas that's dealing with the big chamodik isurim. He's not an oinen that's pata. He's a problem. And he wants to say that this is a raya that an oinis has a patur of eating without a bracha. Now we'll soon see it has to be a real oinis, because a Balkari is a real oinis. He can't correct it at this point. But we could do a little better, and then we'll apply this to Maisa. Rabbeinu Yoina, in the back of the Gemara, Daf Chesam Abeis and Daf Yarif, he has a shaila, and the Lashon is mamish custom made for us. Someone that's mechuyit make a bracha, and he can't, she'ein yadav nekiyas, oy she'oimid b'makam she'ein anaki, k'goyin achayla, she'ein mitasei nekiya. Zok Rabbeinu Yoina, if someone has to make a bracha, but he's in an unclean situation, mamish our case of ein anaki, what should he do? He can't make a bracha. Let him be mahara the bracha. I hear a lav kadiba, but Hashem yira leleva. He quotes the pasuk in Shmuel. V'yitlei maschar machshava. He'll get the schar of wanting to make a bracha. Now that's very funny. He's not yoitza, but do the best you can. And this is quoted in the Ramah in Siman Samach Beis Siv Gimel. If someone's in a place she'einay naki, he can't make a bracha. Don't make a bracha. Forget. We'll soon see making a bracha. Makom she'einay naki is an issa deraisa. La'yir v'haya machnecha kadosh. So just think the bracha, and you get schar for trying. Now that's sort of a tanchumin, but it's not more than tanchumin. You're not yoitzu with the hearer, but you try. Mr. Brewer, in fact, points out. Wait a second. If it indeed is a real, full-fledged Makom She'ein Naki, so how could you be Mahara? Don't forget, the one place that is us even here is an unclean place. Don't forget, a place that's not Sniyazdik, L'yer b'cha'er v'azdava, Diber Asa Hiramuta. But the real Issa is a unclean place. So Mr. Brewer explains we're talking about an in-between situation. You can't make a bracha, but here is muta. So here we see l'chayra our situation. The Biur Halacha, in fact, points out, lav dafka, you think of Krishma l'mashal. You're allowed to even think the bracha, and that would suffice. So this is what we're looking for. The Ramah in Samach Beis Sif Gimel, a makam sheinenaki, a chayla. If you can't make a bracha, if the place allows hearer, think the bracha and go weiter and eat. Now that person that asked me the shaila must have heard the psak based on this, but we'll soon see if he's entirely correct. But let's chazar over and we'll apply this lemaisa. All agree the chayma of eating without a bracha, we can't overstate that. It's chavish ish mashchis besides gzeila meila. But all agree the chayma of a bracha that is unwarranted. That's shem shemaim b'vatala, like chayiv krisis. Oinen is not just an oinis. Oinen is pata, not allowed to, in fact. Balkari is an oinis, and the yisai that we establish right now, based on the Ramah, a makam sheinenaki is an oinis, and it's allowed to eat relying on hearer. Okay, now let's apply this and we'll go in order. Someone asked me, should have been a geya, but he was an oinen, and he knew you're allowed to eat without a bracha, but he's very uncomfortable eating without a bracha. So he asked, is there an inyan, is there a hiddur of not eating at all? In other words, you're allowed to eat, but why rely on sveikis? He didn't want to eat. So I looked it up. I could not find any makar that there's an inyan to not to eat. I will soon see by Safek brachas lahakal, there is an inyan to avoid the Safek and not to eat. But we understand the chilik is pashut. A Safek brachas, pashut don't know what to do. So the best eights is don't do anything. So we'll soon see Safek brachas don't eat. But an oinen, he's pata. It's like an isha. Is there an inyan isha not to eat chutz l'sukkah? I mean, you could eat in the sukkah and but it's an inyan when you're not chayiv. So to muchazich, the Beskurav once said, when someone fasts but he's not mechuyev to, it's tam gemuchit. This is tam gemuchit. He's not mechuyev to make a bracha. And again, to my knowledge, there's no such inyan. An oinin is a ptur. In fact, Rabbi Yashav Tak, mentioned earlier, he says there's no inyan for the oinin to go get someone to make a bracha and be mighty with shemeka oina. So that's not what the Bereshit wants. There are two svaras in the Yishalmi why oinin is pata. Either because Isaac mitzvah he can't make a bracha, he's too busy, or more logically, even if he's not busy, he's not an undertaker, but it's a bezoyin for the mace. Now think about the mace. Don't worry about mitzvahs. So, to my knowledge, an oinen has no reason to avoid eating. But let's talk about a Safek bracha situation where the Rav says, Rabbi, you're a Safek bracha, you're allowed to eat Shulchan Aruch in 4 places. That, we understand that there is a Makam Lahachma. Because he's not a potter, he's a oines. Oines, Lamaisa, is best to avoid the situation. Now, Lamaisa, I should mention, I found this, the Siddha Yavit says this, that if a Safek brachas would want to do the extra hiddur, don't eat, or better yet, much better yet, get a bracha from someone else. Here is Shemei Ka'ina, or create a bracha. You have a Safek, if you made a shahakal, so go to Mincha, make a Shini Makam, come back and make a bracha l'chol hadayis. The Rav in Kuf Samach Zayin Yud Beis, the Sharatzi, and Sivkat Memches quotes this. He says, the Rav says like pretty clearly, to be machmir and make a bracha sabal is wrong. You want to be machmir? Don't eat. That's a chumrah. So the chiluk between that and oinen is unmistakable. The Aruch HaShulchan in Reish Beis, Sif Beis, has a whole mahalach. And he says, the Gemara says, Haiman the Bayil Mavi Chasida Yikayim Mil de Brachas. Now don't forget, a chassid is a bigger gadol than a tzaddik. How do I know that? In Nida Daf Yud Zayin, the Gemara says that the tzaddik that cuts his fingernails buries it, but a chassid burns it. Obviously, a chassid is bigger than a tzaddik. So, what makes someone a chassid? He keeps hilchas brachas. He says, I think the pshat is that when he has a suffix, he doesn't rely on sveikis, and he goes the extra mile. And he gives a bunch of mashalim. I was pretty disappointed. He gives a mashal, suffix 8 or adama, or another suffix if in a case of situation where he doesn't know if Lamaisa he could which bracha to make, he could rely on a shahakol, but he doesn't do all that. But for all his mishalim, he doesn't give a mashal of our case. That you have a suffix, you made a shahakol, so get a bracha or don't eat. But I think it's pasha, that's what he meant to say. Maybe it's so pasha, he didn't mention it. But no doubt about it, when someone has a suffix situation, you don't have to guilt trip anybody. You're allowed to eat without a bracha. But the chassid will avoid eating. Rav Moshe has a big chiddush. When someone makes a bracha, the wrong bracha in certain situations, when the halach is you're allowed to eat, it means eat just to make the bracha chal, but don't eat more. So sabal is not a perfect heta, it's a heta to eat if you want. That's l'chayra pashit. A painful question, and I heard this unfortunately 3 different situations, where someone cannot talk. Can't say krishma, can't bench, can't make brachas. One question, I heard a shayla was someone had polyps, and the doc says if you don't talk for a few weeks, you won't need surgery. Otherwise, he's going to need surgery. And the third question, I'm not clear with the details, but someone who had a very severe stutter, and there's a new type of therapy, if he doesn't talk for a few weeks at all, so then he sort of starts to talk, it's like he's starting to talk for the first time, and somehow he could avoid the stutter. Again, I can't tell you if it worked or not, but this is what someone was asked. He wanted to undergo a certain therapy, not to talk for a few weeks, and then he'll train himself to talk again. Hopefully, he will not implement the stuttering. So the question is, what does he do about mitzvahs, about davening? So davening, there's a simple eitzah. He's yaitz shemei ka'ina. Shachris, he'll listen to Chazar Hashatz. Mincha, Chazar Hashatz. Now, I knew someone who had this shayla, and he's a chaverman. I asked him, what do you do about Ma'ariv? No problem. Ma'ariv, I daven mincha in one shul. I ran to a shul that's davens with the latest man, and I davened, I heard the mincha Chazar Hashatz from my Ma'ariv. So I said, did you tell the Baal Tefillah that? So he says, not really. He's afraid to. What? Krishma also, Shemei Ka'ina. Someone will say Krishma for him. What can you do? But the question is, that bracha is typically during the day, he has a family to be moitzim. Middle of the night, what does he do about a bracha? So, Lamaisa, this is the question, can he be yoitza l'chatchila with her? Again, in the middle of the night, not waking up his wife. He wants to drink, what should he do? So, again, the halacha Lamaisa, hir alaf kadibur. That's Masech the brachas, daf chaf, Shulchan Aruch samach beis gimel, kuf aleph beis, kuf pei hey beis, and reish vav gimel. But the plea is the next sif, Samach Beis Dalid. The Mechaber says, in Machmas Chayli Aynis, he said Krishma, Belev, Behira, Yoitza. Zokte Bi'alacha, he's Yoitza not only Krishma, but Belev, Hira, who adin Tefillah, B'shar Brachas. Now the next sif, you change your mind, what's going on here? But the Ramah later inside of Dalid Vav also says, if he can't daven, he should at least be maharer, and he quotes the pasuk in Tehillim, Imru bilvavchem. Obviously, bilvavchem is a form of amira. Now, what's going on here? The teretz is, and that's why most poskim say, that lamaisa, unfortunately, we paskin here lav kadiba. But we do find in the in psukim, yihu l'ratzon imrei fi v'hegyon libi. That means hegyon libi is a currency. Imru bilvavchem, or Hashem Yira L'Levav. So the Paiskim say this, the Mishnah is Paisik Achron that quotes them all, in Samach Beis Yivkot and Zayin, that Lamaisa facts remain facts. Hira Lav Kadiba. You're not Yaitzu with Hira, not a Bracha, not Krishma, not Shemon Esrei. But if there's no other choice, do the best you can, and you get schar for trying. But Hira Lav Kadiba. Now what does that mean? I'll tell you what it means. Let's say someone cannot talk. And he can't find a minion to be yoitzu with the shliach tzibur. He's home alone, so let him be mahara the Shemon Esrei. But let's say his davening was so powerful, he had an immediate refuah shalema, and now he could talk. Should he daven over? It's like Mishpur, absolutely, because what he said with Hiri, you're not yoitzu. It's a consolation prize. It's a nechama. So what do we see? Hira laf kadibur, but it's better than nothing. So l'chayra, our situation, of a can't make a bracha. If there's no other choice, we'll apply the same halacha. Let him be mahara, and the Baruch Shem gives him credit. And Ataka found Reb Shlomo Zalman in Alicha Shlomo and Perek Zayin Sif Yud. He was asked mamash our question, but he had the shayl was a big year of Shemayim, and he wanted to know, could he undergo this therapy, which hopefully will heal his voice, but it means submitting himself to weeks of being unable to daven and bench and make brachas and do mitzvahs. Krishma, what's he going to do? So Shlomo Zalman had a beautiful makar. The halacha is a person is not mechuyev to give more than a chaimish of his nechasim for a mitzvah say. But the ability to talk is more than kama mainai. Not just a chaim, kama mainai. So what is he doing? He's giving up mitzvahs to hopefully regain the ability to talk. That's fine. But lamaisa, what does he do? Be mahar. So here we have a situation, even though we'll tell the person that be mahara, but between me and you, he's not making a bracha. But lamaisa the Ramah and the Mechab allow that. So this is a good makar of eating without a bracha. Someone who cannot talk, and there's no one around to be shemei ka'oina. We'll tell him to be mahara the bracha belev, but lamaisa, tzveshin unsgeret, he wasn't yaitza. And the fact that you're allowed to do that indicates that when there's no other alternative, here is enough just to make him feel better. But if it comes to it, you're allowed to eat without a bracha. Now, avada, he should avoid this. But let's say he feels he needs it. This is a makar neman that you're allowed to eat without a bracha and rely on hirah. Why? Not because of hirah. Because oinis rachmana patre. That's what we have to say, like Rav Osna said. Now, lamaisa, the next question is a situation where it's a makam she'ein naki. Let's talk tzniistic, but lamaisa, it could be in many situations. A person could be in a hospital, and there's a bedpan, and there's a stool sample. In a hospital by a chayla, sometimes the person pashut has no control, and he's never clean. So let's use the lashon of einay naki. I don't mean physically clean. I mean he is halacha, either a place or a person that's asa midaraisa to make a bracha. The halacha in the beginning of Siman Ayin Tes puts it clearly. There are sometimes a person makes a bracha where there's an issa of daraisa and he wasn't yaitzu with the bracha. A makam she'ein naki is an issa daraisa of vayamachanecha kadosh. So we're talking a situation that he is halachically unclean, also to make a bracha. But what does he do? He's going to fast the rest of his life? So here, l'chayra, this is a real einus. Technically, we could say it's not a real einus because let him get clean. And that's true. If he anticipates being clean in the near future, then they'll make a bracha. Wait. But let's say a situation again that is an einaki and it's indefinite. So here he has another problem. Because if he's an einaki, he can't even make hirah. But it makes no chiluk. If he's an einis, we're allowing him to eat without a bracha. This is the halacha. Rav Osna points to the Rabbeinu Yoina and the Ramah that I mentioned earlier. Ramah and Samach Beis Dalid. If someone's an einim makim legamri, he's in a place that is not clean, he just makes hirah if hirah is mutter, and Hashem yirah l'leivav. So although hirah is sometimes not the option, but then again, it's never an option. It's basically oinis rachmana patre. So if you add up the facts, we have a situation of an oinain that's pater, but we have a balkari that's an oinis and zladi without a bracha, and now the chayla joins that club of oinsim that eats without a bracha. If he can be mahara, a little better, but not much. But if he can't be mahara, makes no chiluk. Rav Osna in Chelik Vav Siman Chav Gimel again was discussed this very shaila, and he says that even though there's an issa chomer gzeila of eating b'lai bracha, but heim amru v'heim amru. They said that if you can make a bracha and you don't, chas v'shalom, that's gzeila. But if he can't, halacha does not allow him to. So heim amru v'heim amru. and therefore he's allowed to eat without a bracha. He says, although, as we'll soon see, the Mishnah Berurah and the Biur Halacha says, it's wrong, people drink in a merchatz without a bracha. They think, well, in the merchatz you can't make a bracha, so let me drink without a bracha. He said, that's not an oinus. Get dressed and go out of the merchatz. But our case, he has no choice. This is his perpetual problem. So he says that if it's a real oinus, he's allowed to eat without a bracha. Now, this is interesting, where Vozna, with his tremendous koyach HaTorah, his das Torah, he says, but I'll tell you something else. If he's just a mild choyla and he could wait, better to wait. But let's say he's a choyla sheyesh by sakana. Again, someone's in a hospital, and part of the problem is he has no bodily functions, no control of bodily functions. So he has a problem, and he's not clean ever. So Rav Vozna says, I believe, he says, he compares it to a famous Maggid Mishnah. The Mechaber brings it in Hilchas Refuah, Shin Chav Ches, I think it's Siv Dalid. Yeah, Shiv Chav Dalid. Maggid Mishnah says, when someone has a status of Chol Sheyesh by Sakana on Shabbos, and decides, I want a newspaper. So you say, well, you're going to die without it? No, but I want a newspaper. So the Maggid Mishnah says, once he has the status of Chol Sheyesh by Sakana, you're allowed to be Mechal Shabbos, even for non-essential Pikuach Nefesh needs. Because Shabbos is Hutra. Okay, we don't paskin like that, but that's what the Maggid Mishnah says. Zok Rav Vozna, we don't paskin like that regarding Shabbos, which is the Deraisa. But regarding eating without a bracha, at most the Rabbanon, we do paskin like that. And a choyle sheyesh by sakana is mutter at any time to eat without a bracha. That's the way I understood it. Because he is a choyle sheyesh by sakana, he doesn't have to wait a few hours, he can eat right away. In other words, the aim by sakana should wait. The yesh by sakana has his patur of a choyle sheyesh by sakana. Now this is all regarding the actual choyle. Now very often we have a question about, he has a visitor. So the choyle says, Pashat, he feels he can't make a bracha. Maybe he has to visit to be moitzi him. Visitor get a food, make a bracha, and be moitzi him. But that has two problems. Number one, if the choyle can't make a bracha because it's a makom she'ein naki, so what's the heter for the visitor? But a more serious problem, which brings us to another big yisoid, yesh la'ayin. Let's say the visitor will stand outside of the room. So he's not in a makom she'ein naki. He's in a place he can make a bracha. He'll make the bracha, and the choyle inside will hear the bracha. Is that going to be an effective way of giving the choyle a proper bracha? Why not, right? Oh, but here's the problem, Shemei Ka'oina. If it's a legitimate currency, Shemei Ka'oina, that Ka'oina, then it should be asked to make such a bracha. So Reiz Apella. In Svara, Shemei Ka'oina is not a joke, it's real. If the person can't say it, then he can't listen. And you look, the Mishnah Berurah and Ayin Heisif Katan Chavtes regarding a Makom Shein Tzanua. The Biur Halacha and the Akdama to Siman Ayin Dalid regarding, here again, a situation of a person that's not dressed properly. And in Ayin Tes Zayin regarding a Bal Tefillah that's davening, and in the back this Tzaya, he says, stop davening, because the people in the back can't be Yaitza. You could say it, but they can't be Yaitza. So 3 places Shemei Ka'oina is not mutter when the bracha can't be said. But Reiz Apella, in the end of Kuf Dalid, the Biur Halacha with the Shulchan Aruch says that if someone's davening Shemay Nesra, he can't say Kedusha, but he can listen to the Shliach Tzibur. If you can't say it, why listen? So the Biur Halacha says maybe that would work the same in a different scenario. Zok the Biur Halacha, maybe that would work regarding a Balkari or the like who can't make a bracha. He can't say it, okay. But maybe someone can be moitzi him. And the Chavetz Chaim leaves it as a suffix. Now it's a pliya, because the Chavetz Chaim in 3 other places says it's not a suffix. Shemei Ka'oina is real. So some say maybe the chiluk, the mechalukim, but I think we should leave that Biur Halacha as a suffix. We don't know what he means. But 3 places we see from the Chavetz Chaim that if a person can make a bracha, Shemei Ka'oina doesn't make it any better. The Chavetz Chaim had a good kasha. How could someone Milish by Nesra hear Kedusha? If Shemei Kohen is real, it's a hefsik. Or it's not a kasha at all. Hefsik is totally in a physical dibur. If a person says Kedusha, it's a hefsik. Shemeya is Kohen regarding being Yaitza, but it's not Kohen regarding hefsik. He didn't talk. So that's why whenever there's no heta to make a bracha, there's no eitzah to be Shemeya Kohen. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about a visitor. Now let's assume the chayla is allowed to make brachas because he's a chayla. Yesh beis sakana. Rav Vozna's het again, I didn't find it earlier, but Rav Vozna, ne'eman aleinu his psak. So the chayla could eat without a bracha. What does the visitor do? He's a perfectly healthy person. So avada chachameina b'raishay, before he goes out, or before he comes into the room, he makes a bracha outside. It's not a shinimakam to be worried about shinimakam tzarich levarich, but it's a valid bracha that he could take with him. But let's say it's a parent in an ICU and the parent doesn't want the child to leave and the child has enough seichel to know, don't leave, brachas, don't leave. But he has to eat after a while. So here we come to what's definitely the last piece of this beautiful puzzle, and that is a taz. On the Ramah, which quotes Rabbeinu Yoina, that someone who's a makim chayla, that has no control, can't make a bracha, but he should think the bracha, comes again the taz, Samach Beis Yif Katan Aleph, with a very broad heta. Since the Ramah, Rabbeinu Yoina says, sometimes you could rely on hearer when a bracha can't be said because ein anaki mizeh yesh lilmai the mishat samei lishtais balayla b'mitasai. Yeah, he's talking about our case, not a sick person. Talking about a regular person. He wakes in the middle of the night and he's very thirsty, but he knows his problem that if he washes negavasa till he washes, he won't fall asleep again, or it's hard for him to go to the sink if he doesn't have by the bed. But whatever the case is, if he can't wash properly negavasa, now what does he do? His hands are unclean. Yadayim askanias. There's ruach ra. He slept so far. What does he do? Zakti taz. Rely on hearer, and he sends you to Beis Yosef that here is mutter unless it's very, very dirty. Here in bed he's not dirty, just his hands are ruach ra. So the taz yahar habracha b'libay v'yishta. So what this person told me, he heard that you're allowed to be mahara the bracha in bed instead of washing the agavasa, is not just the Ramah, it's a taz. This is what we're looking for. Now, don't forget, this person is not a balkari, he's not an oinain, he's not even a chayil shepakana, he's a perfectly healthy person. And evidently, if it's hard to wash, drink b'lay bracha. Apparently, the Taz is using the concept of oinus rachmana patre, even in this seemingly possible situation of getting up anyhow. But if it's hard, it's hard. I hear a lav kadibur, but it's something. However, the Taz is strongly, people, other paiskim take strong exception. As early as the Mata Yehud, the Mishnah Berurah quotes him, I don't understand. You're not an oinus, get up and wash. It's hard, so remember the Mishnah from Tzara Agra. Ve'ein adayim al-chayla ula onus. The ain don an efshe mishi efshe. In other words, you're not an oinus, Rabbi. You're not an oinus. You're a healthy person. Try harder. And the embassies will soon see what the Mishnah Berurah says, like the merchatz. In the merchatz, you can't make a bracha. So you're technically an oinus, but get dressed and go out. But we're not finished. Zok El Yerabah in Sif Cotton Dalit, I have a different eitzah. You don't want to wash negavasa, it's too hard. Okay. Why don't you be meshafshef? Rub your hands without water, a cloth. Mida de menake, that's Shulchan Aruch's lashon. Mida menake is like washing, and then make a bracha. Why rely on hearer when you could make a bracha? Now, you're not going to get the real way of doing things washing, but mida de menake. And the Mishnah Berurah says this: if you can't wash, at least use mida de menake. And Mishnah Berurah sends us to Siman Dalet Siv Chav Beis and Chav Gimel, that even though you're supposed to wash your hands, but mida de menake works. They take a tissue, a blanket, just rub your hands, get off any dirt. Now, There is a Lamaisa, he's not doing it perfectly because Ruach Ra still remains, but it's better than drinking without a bracha. So we see it's better to make a partial atila and make a bracha than rely on Hira. And we find this in earlier sources. The Radvaz, Chelik Aleph Lamed Ches, writes, when he wakes in the middle of the night, and whatever the case was, he couldn't wash, he would clean his hands with midah menake, and he would drink. Now you have to realize, in the olden days, especially in the cold countries, there was no steam at night. Waking up in the middle of the night means freezing. Sometimes the negavas was frozen, so you couldn't wash. But at the end of the day, the Radvaz relied on midah menake. Another Kadmoin, the Mari Bruna, in Siman Samachei, also, he says, Chazal were very worried about a person's tircha. It's always a plea. I learned the Mishnah. If someone started, really you're not allowed to eat before davening. But if you started beheta, you're allowed to finish and then daven. What's considered starting davening? We think probably starting eating. He's in the middle of a main course, right? No. He took off his belt. So you took off his belt, put it back. No, you're not matriach eat like that. So he uses that in our case. If it's taka tircha gedoyla, so not drink without a bracha and rely on Hira. Midah menake and make a bracha. But Rabbi say it's so convincing. So what did the Taz hold? The Taz was the Taz. So by me is bar, the Taz did not hold its mutter on a regular difficulty, because difficulty is a virtue. From Tzara Agra, and I'll show what I mean. The Chayodam in Klal Hey Sif Tezayin. If someone's an honest, the Dochak Lishtais Balayla, mamish our case, no problem. Rely on Hira. Zok Mishnah. There are people that drink in the merchatz without a bracha, and they point their finger to that Chayodam. They are misunderstanding the Chayodam. Chayod did not say that if right now you can't make a bracha to drink and rely on Hira. Chayod was talking about it's an oinis and dachuk. He has no choice. He can't wait, whatever the case is. A person in the middle of the night, that's, people are human beings, He wakes up, if he's going to start washing negabas, he won't fall asleep again. The next morning he's going to be a chayol sheyesh b'sakana. He's going to be irritable and like the Bettina Rav says, taking a sleepy pill, maybe he's no heta now because he's not a chayla. But if he doesn't take it, he's going to be a chayla. So tossing and turning a whole night, he's going to become very, very not well. Falling asleep without drinking, he won't fall asleep either. He's still thirsty. So it's a no-win situation. That's an oinus. But stam in the merchat zok the mishnah, that's not a heta. So my point only is the Taz did not say if you can't wash, so here. The Taz is talking about a situation of a real oinus. Now, the Matud is even oinus, lemais you could do better. So you have to know in what the machlokes is. But it's not just, just rely on here. And I think the biggest raya is the Bechach and Eshel Avram and Siman Samach Beis. He says the Taz says you make a bracha on here and you go vaita. It can't be. It's connected to Mishnah. Now listen to his Bekiyas. The famous Mishnah, it's in all over, it's in Yeridei, it's in Archayim. Orum lo yitraim. A person that's not dressed can't take off truma. Or can't shecht. Why not? What's wrong? Can't make a bracha. So frag the Bechach, what do you mean can't make a bracha? Let him be mahar the bracha. Like let him mahar the bracha? Teretz says, no. The Taz is not saying if you can't do it, then just do without it. The Taz is saying if there's no other choice, like in the middle of the night, and for some reason you're an oinis gomer, then drink without a bracha, rely on Hira. But the Aram has an eitzah, get dressed and shech like a mensch. So even in the Taz we see is not a free-for-all. And this, the Mishnah Berurah again, in the end of Siman Samach Beis, in the Bialocha Mishnah Berurah, he says even the Chai Adam did not give a blanket het. If you can't make a bracha, so is nisht. That's a wrong approach. So here we have both the Chai Adam and I believe the Taz. There is a heta. Now again, each person has to apply it in his own life. Some people could fall asleep right away. So vada wash negavasa and do it right and don't rely on midah de menake. If someone knows he won't fall asleep and it's a big hassle. I don't know how tight hassle, but if hassle is tircha, no, it's worth it. The tircha. If it's impossible or difficult, even though he's not a chayla, then you have what to be saimich on midah de menake. I hope it's clear. Eating without a bracha is a big problem, but Hira isn't the solution. If there's no other choice, hearer, we rely on hearer being something. Now, to apply this specifically, I'll give you a simple mashal. There's an older person, whether living at home or in a hospital, is not negeya, but he can't manage on his own. Now, children have to be understanding. If he wakes up in the night, he needs a drink. So the night before, you put water by his bedside. But for him to wash negavas on his own is difficult, or maybe impossible. So that's a case of an oinus. The water's right there, but the washing, it's just, if it can't be done in an easy way, so we have this taz. The taz was the taz. So prepare the water and tell the father, if you could rub your hands, clean it a little bit, and then make a bracha. If that doesn't work, even that he can't do it, it's middle of the night, he's not fully lucid, whatever it is, then drink without a bracha, and that's the halacha of an oinus. The Birkei Yosef, in the beginning of Samach Beis, quotes the Radvaz and Mary Brunner, and he says, but al pi Kabbalah, it's not a good idea to rely on Midi de Menake. Why? Listen to where he's coming from. Because don't forget, you're in the middle of the night. Midi de Menake works for Nikias. It takes away any dirt that might have accumulated on your hands. But what's going to be with Ruach Ra? The nightly Ruach Ra that visits a person, the Gemara says in Shabbos, that's like a Bas Melech that doesn't go away unless you have water 3 times with a keli. So his chiddush, again, I'm telling you what he says. He says, it's so much a problem of making a bracha without Ruach Ra, it's better to make a bracha behira and rely on the Rambam, the Hira Kediba. And as the Mekubalim are so against the Ruach Ra that it's better to rely on Hira and the Rambam, the Hira Kediba. And this is quoted by some Paiskim, Mekubalim, that because of the Ruach Ra issue. Now, for us, Bali Halacha, that's a pliya, because we find this all over. The Radvaz already, the Mari Bruna, wa Kadmainim. So, for again, someone that's very much a Mekubal has this psak, but for Lididan, we don't rely on Hira, because Hira lav Kadibar, and Ruach Ra is not Ma'akiv. Don't forget, Mr. Bura in page 1, literally the first page, Mr. Bura, discusses Shaila, someone woke up early morning, and there's no negavas by the bed. In fact, the only water is his friend's water. So he says, Chalila, to steal the water, that's for sure. Now, what do? Midi de Menaki, and Chalila levatul Torah b'shvilka. So go learn. In other words, Ruach Ra is the most difficult to get rid of, but it's the least ma'akiv. It's not ma'akiv. So, for the rest of us, although grad the Sharat Tshuva and Dalit Chav Ches Mishtabur in the end of Siman Dalit does mention this Birkei Yosef, but it's an honorable mention. What it means to say is, Midi de Menaki is not a perfect Eitzah either, because you have Ram Ruach Ra. What's the best Eitzah? To strain yourself and wash. Because Midi de Menaki is not either a good Eitzah, al pi Kabbalah. But a real oinus, like I told you, an older person or a poor sleeper, I can just tell you there are those that are makel to rely on this hero, even though it's lav kadiba. A common question, a woman that's nursing a child in the middle of the night, it's difficult enough. She wakes in the middle of the night, and she wants to drink, which is important for her, but negavasa is a big procedure. So again, if she could wash negavasa avada, she should wash. If that's difficult, she's been told, Midi de Menake. But I have a shtickle of a ha'ora, to make it a little more user-friendly. The B'chachin Eishel Avram, in the beginning of Siman Dalet, quotes his Shver. Now, he doesn't say this beferish, but I think that's what he means. He says that according to the Zoya, who's very machmir about walking Dalet Amis below Negel Vasa, that's only in the morning. But if someone wakes up in the middle of the night and is going back to sleep, the Kapeda de Zoya is not applicable. Because when you're waking up to go back to sleep, there's no problem of walking without Negel Vasa. And he says that you could rely on that, God will rely on that. In other words, and he said you could even touch a makoim that you're not supposed to touch before negavasa, because you woke up and going back to sleep. Now he doesn't spell it out, but I think what he means to say is that apparently the real Ruach Ra comes in the morning, in fact, it so much comes in the morning that those that, the Eilig Yidin that wake up early in the morning, Shulchan Aruch Siman Dal Sif Yud Daled, when you wake up early in the morning, you wash negavas v'shteitzach. When it comes alay shacha, wash again. So he seems to be using that as a shtickle kula, that the intense ruach ra first comes in the morning. Waking up at night, I shouldn't say that. The real intent is when you wake up in the middle of the night, wake up for the night. When you wake up and you're going back to sleep, that's really what he's saying. He doesn't say in the middle of the night. And you're going back to sleep, maybe there's no ruach ra. So that might be a little more, again, makes it user-friendly. Let the Isha or an older person do Midat de Menake. Ruach ra, we could rely on that you're going back to sleep. There is no ruach ra as of yet. Now, a visitor in a room which is a makom she'ein naki, again, is not like a chayla. He should try to slip out. As we said, that was really the best eitzah. Now, I saw someone has an interesting, not someone, the Paiskim quote a tefillah of David. I don't have the tefillah of David, but the Chaim Falaji in Kaf HaChaim, in Siman Ches, Sif Ches, quotes this tefillah of David with an interesting eitzah. He says, before you go to sleep at night, before you make a mapel, make a shahakol, and drink less than a revius. Then go to sleep. If you wake in the middle of the night, the original shackle is still in effect. Now, that's a double chiddush. Let me explain. The first chiddush, which is right, is a bracha goes indefinitely. The Magen Avram holds a bracha rishayna is ineffective after sherikol. Just like you can make a bracha after sherikol, so to bracha rishayna. But most paiskim strongly reject that because it's illogical. When it comes to making a bracha achrayna, it has to be within sherikol. Otherwise, you're not making. There's nothing to make a bracha achrayna. It's already fully digested or started to digest. But bracha rishayna is a matir. So even though a long time has elapsed, but it's still good. So he's right that a bracha rishayna goes. You know, if you come to work and you make a shackle on a candy and don't leave and not masiyach das, the candy bracha and the candy goes the whole day. The only problem is bracha achrayna. Oh, but that's the problem. The problem is sleep, and that's why Taka B'chaim Falaji says it's nidcha. It doesn't work. Now, you want a better eitzah? B'chaim Falaji in the next shtickle, he quotes from the other end of the world. He was a Sfardi in Turkey. Abzalmal of Anojana, the brother of Chaim, the Goyin said, "Les Dain Barnash." This is not a human being. He was a Malach Alikim. He went to sleep at night every night with gloves. Why? Because when he woke up, he could learn right away. Now, he says, Lamaisa, that's a good eitzah, but it's not going to work for Ruach Ra. But he does say, I can't explain it, but he was a Makubal. He does say, Haseichel Mechayev Ha'emes Mashu Emes, that Lamaisa, with Shmira Hazois, with sleeping with gloves, say, Ein Atuma, Echad Mi Elav Chalakim Yochel Lishreis Aleim. I guess he was a Ruach Ra expert like everything else. But somehow that prevents the intense Ruach HaRa from setting. So, ainly asik ben istaris, but if you want to sleep at night with gloves, because into hate, I think you're better off, making a bracha with Menaki. But just a few quick points. Merchatz of yesterday, of Chazal's times, was very unclean. They showered very infrequently, and therefore it was a makay mizuham. Our showers and our pools certainly are not a problem to make a bracha. I mean, in the shower, we can't make a bracha because the person not dressed, but in the pools, avadi are allowed to make a bracha, l'chatchila. As long as people are wearing bathing suits, people rely on all these coolest. A pool with a mikvah, where people are undressed, the makam is a problem, but a pool is no shayla. Also, when people find themselves in an unclean, a non-sneer situation, l'mashal, on a plane, a car, if it can be a car, a bus, a train, so there, making a bracha is the same issa. But here is mutter. So learning or listening to a recording of a shir is perfectly mutter. There is le'erbacha ervas dava, here a mutter. Pardon me, but it's important to mention people that unfortunately need a catheter, which is the meir glayim. That's no problem making a bracha in front of them, or they can make a bracha as well. Because the meir glayim is only us when it comes out midaraisa. Once it's in a keli covered, even if it's visible, it's not like an erva that's visible. This is like Meir Glayim. It's mutlach tchil to make a bracha in that situation. When someone has a problem with colostomy, which is the tzoya, that's a much more serious problem. That you have to ask a child know what to do. But I guess leaving the last shaila, we understand why we find the Shulchan Aruch in many places. I'll give you one example. A person drinks a little bit wine by kiddush. Does he make a shahakol on the soda? So if he has a revius of wine, yayin poyet kamini mashka. But if he has less than that, it's a shayla. And the place say either better drink a revius, at least a malay lugmav. Can someone drink less than a malay lugmav and rely on it being a suffix? Because some say even a drop potters. That the place is wrong. And now we understand why. Because suffix bracha is not an easy pass. It's a very difficult heta. Do it right and avoid sveikas. I couldn't talk to you.
Shem Ergens Shir like to be Gasher Kirk or Smith for today's share. There's some after Kaddish or Smith says Sikkim. Sponsor a share, call Ergens Shir 718-851-8651, email ist@yeshivanet.com. Chananya ben Akasha Imer Rotzak Ereshboch Lezakis is Yisrael Figach Ibn Am Torah Mitzvah Shanam Al Nech Office Man Sidke Yagdol Terviyade.
I have to first finish a sikkim. Can we sit down for a minute? We have to.
Hakol Moedim, the Sikkim is mutter to say. Sikkim on Suffolk Bracha.
Okay, just let's chazer. We learned Bekitza because we did it, covered a lot. The chaymer of eating without a bracha is intense, but then again, the chaymer of Shem Shemaim Levatal is also very intense, and that's why we have a problem. We try to avoid any suffix brachas because of this uncertainty. An oinen eats without a bracha not because he's an oinis, but because he's not mechuyev, and therefore there's no reservation. He can eat, doesn't have to feel guilty. There's machlokes rishonim what a suffix brachas lahakol means, to make a bracha or maybe not to make a bracha. We pass without a doubt that you don't make a bracha, you're not allowed to make a bracha, but because of the uncertainty, it is kedai to find an eitzah, either shemei ka'ina, or change location, or any other eitzah to get a bracha. But when a person has a suffix brachas, there is a maila in avoiding eating until he remedies the problem without just relying on eating without a bracha. A balkari, like a chayla, is an oinis, and that's the raya that a person that's a real oinis is allowed lahalacha to eat without a bracha. Oinen, as we said, is potter, but these are oinsim, and we have this yisoid. Now, someone who can't talk, so about the shemei koin is lachatchila, like it always is, but if there's no other eitzah, then we rely on hearer in those situations. There is an inyan to wait and not rely on hearer, like anybody else, that the hearer is not really yoyt to the bracha. A makam shein anaki is an is, or person anaki is issa deraisa to make a bracha in that place, and it's not better than nothing, it's worse than nothing. Even here is also when it's a real intense makam shein anaki. But basically, a choyel sheyesh pesakana, Rav Osner says with his great Das Torah, he is potter from brachas, like this. There's a het of Chilul Shabbos. The visitor should find an eitz to make a bracha, slip out for a moment when it won't disturb the choyla. If lamaisa the tazashita that an oinis is allowed to eat without a bracha, rely on hearer, that we qualified only when it's a real oinis. A merchatz is not an oinis. Middle of the night, depending on the situation, usually it's not an oinis, but sometimes it could be. We have to be understanding. Someone Taka mentioned people that have to go to the bathroom frequently during the night because of various problems. That might be a situation of oinis, at least regarding the washing. Wearing gloves would avoid the problem of washing hands, and maybe minimize the ruach ra. But basically, ruach ra is not ma'akev al pi Kabbalah. It is ma'akev, as we said. A pool is not a merchatz. A pool is mutter to make a bracha. A place of lacking tznius, you're allowed to be maharer. And basically, we avoid sveikis because lamaisa, we don't know, it's not really a het gomer.